Racist salesperson humiliates black girl in store, but panics upon discovering the truth about who her father is. What happens when a racist salesperson humiliates a young black girl, not knowing that her father is a respected businessman in town? This is the question that permeates the story of Layla Blackwood, a teenager full of dreams and love for animals. In a small suburban town in the United States, the Pets and Paws store is a symbol of status and exclusivity. Frequented by the local elite, the store is run by Karen Thompson, an arrogant salesperson who does not hesitate to show her disdain for those she considers undeserving. However, Layla, the daughter of Marcus Blackwood, the store owner, enters with hope and curiosity, unaware that her visit would change everything. Layla is a 17-year-old, intelligent and determined, who carries a deep love for animals in her heart. Raised in an upper-class family, she has always been taught to value humility and respect. Despite her father being a respected man, Layla prefers to visit the store discreetly, seeking to understand the value of hard work and kindness. Upon entering Pets and Paws, she feels excited, but also a bit nervous, knowing that the environment can be hostile. The shelves filled with toys and clothes for dogs enchant her, but Karen's presence soon becomes an obstacle. As she approaches the puppy section, Layla is noticed by Karen, who observes her with disdain. The salesperson, with her arrogant posture, makes rude comments, insinuating that the dogs there are too expensive for people like her. Layla's heart tightens, but she tries to maintain her dignity and replies that her father would approve of her being there. However, Karen ignores this assertion, laughing scornfully. The humiliation becomes even more intense when Karen makes a racist comment that deeply wounds Layla. The young girl, although hurt, remains calm and does not lose hope. The situation changes drastically when Marcus Blackwood, Layla's father, enters the store. Noticing his daughter's worried expression, he asks what happened. Before Layla can explain, Karen, in an act of arrogance, tries to interrupt them with a disrespectful comment. It is at this moment that Marcus introduces himself as Layla's father, leaving Karen in shock. He highlights the seriousness of the salesperson's prejudiced attitude, exposing the injustice of her words and actions. This revelation brings an unexpected conclusion to the story. After an intense dialogue, Marcus decides to dismiss Karen, who leaves humiliated and unsure of how to handle the situation. Layla, seeing her dignity restored by her father, feels a wave of gratitude and emotion. The store, which once symbolized exclusivity and prejudice, becomes a space of inclusion, where Marcus commits to promoting training to prevent discrimination in the future. Inspired by this experience, Layla begins to understand the power of her voice and the importance of fighting against racism in the community. This tale addresses themes such as prejudice, identity, and the pursuit of justice. Layla represents resistance and dignity in the face of adversity, showing that respect transcends any social status. The story invites us to reflect on the prejudiced attitudes that still persist in society, and how each individual can make a difference by practicing empathy and inclusion. Layla Blackwood felt confused and shaken after the humiliation she faced at Pets and Paws. Although Karen Thompson's behavior had been disrespectful and entirely unjust, the young girl still struggled with feelings of doubt. How could a salesperson who barely knew her have the audacity to make such cruel comments? She had always believed that people should be judged by their character, not the color of their skin, but that day left her questioning whether society truly shared her view. After the incident, Layla decided that she could not let this event define who she was. The support of her father, Marcus, was crucial. He was a principled man and always spoke about the importance of treating everyone with dignity. Over time, Layla realized that she needed to use her experience to help others facing similar situations. However, this decision would not be easy. The young girl knew that the fight against prejudice required courage and determination, and that she would have to confront her own fears. At school, Layla found refuge in her best friend, Mia, an outgoing girl who always encouraged her to be authentic. Mia was the type of person who was not afraid to take a stand. Upon hearing about what happened in the store, she immediately became furious. "This is unacceptable. We need to do something," Mia exclaimed, her gaze determined. "Let's organize a protest, a way to show that we do not accept this kind of behavior." The idea of a protest made Layla nervous. She worried about the possibility of being targeted for more criticism, and in addition, she was afraid that people would see her as a rebel without a cause. However, Mia's passion was contagious. and Layla felt that perhaps it was time to use her voice. Soon, the two began planning the event, talking to other classmates and encouraging the participation of a community that was still recovering from the humiliation Layla had faced. Meanwhile, Karen, for her part, had not stayed quiet. After being fired, the arrogant salesperson was determined to take revenge. She began spreading rumors about Marcus Blackwood, insinuating that he was just a businessman using his money to buy influence in the town. This caused some people to distance themselves from Marcus, and Layla realized that her battle was becoming an emotional and social battlefield. Layla felt the pressure mounting. Conversations in the classroom began to change. Her colleagues, who were once just friends, now seemed hesitant and uncomfortable approaching her. Some people supported her, but others looked at her with disdain, as if she were trying to cause trouble. Those glances weighed on her like a dark cloud. What had started as an attempt to do the right thing was turning into a painful test of her inner strength. As the days passed, Layla had to deal with the pressure not only from her peers, but also from the environment at home. She felt that somehow her struggle was affecting her relationship with her father. Marcus, though supportive, was worried about the repercussions this battle could have on her career and the family's image. Layla realized that while she was fighting for justice, she was also testing the stability of her own life. In her reflections, Layla began to question her deepest beliefs. Was it worth fighting for an ideal that seemed so distant? Did her father truly share her feelings? These doubts led her to moments of introspection, where she wondered if the fight against prejudice was a cause that could bring more pain than joy. Each step she took seemed to be accompanied by a new obstacle. The emotional tension was palpable, and in a moment of despair, Layla had an honest conversation with Mia. Sometimes I wonder if I am strong enough for this. What happens if all of this fails? Mia, sensing her friend's vulnerability, replied sincerely, "What matters is that you're trying, and you're not alone. If you fail, we start over together. The important thing is not to give up." These comforting words reignited Layla's determination. She realized that even with the challenges and uncertainties, her voice had power, and, more importantly, that her struggle was not just for herself, but for everyone facing discrimination and prejudice. So she decided that regardless of the difficulties, she would continue to fight for justice and dignity, not only for herself, but for all those around her. Layla Blackwood felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders as she prepared for the protest. With each passing day, the conversations around her grew more tense. At school, her peers' glances became a mix of support and hostility. Some encouraged her, while others saw her as an instigator, a rebel who was just causing problems. This internal conflict left her more anxious than ever. The pressure to be the voice of a fight that was not just hers consumed her. The date of the protest was approaching, and Layla noticed that her best friend, Mia, was also feeling overwhelmed. The determination that once shone in Mia's eyes was now accompanied by signs of fatigue. The two often talked, but instead of strengthening each other, they seemed to get lost in anxiety. Mia began to question whether the idea of the protest was really the best approach. What if this all makes things worse? She pondered one afternoon, looking at Layla with concern. What if, instead of changing the situation, we just draw more negative attention? Mia's doubt affected Layla deeply. She realized that in addition to her own insecurities, she now had to deal with her friends' insecurity. What should have been an empowering journey was turning into a source of tension, and Layla felt her strengths being tested in ways she had never imagined. Before we continue with this exciting story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories, and let us know which city you are watching this video from in the comments. On the day of the protest, Layla woke up with a racing heart. She looked at herself in the mirror, trying to convince herself that she was ready. Her father's support, Marcus, echoed in her mind, but Mia's words still haunted her. When she arrived at school, she saw a group of students gathered. Some were holding signs while others were talking in hushed tones, looking nervous. Layla approached, but the atmosphere was charged with uncertainty. She felt that the spirit of unity she had hoped to find was dissipating. As the protest began, Layla tried to speak. Her words were filled with emotion, but as she spoke, she noticed that some people were more interested in filming than in listening. The feeling of being watched made her even more nervous. She saw a group of students in the back laughing and whispering, and it hit her like a punch in the stomach. The doubt she had tried to push away came back with full force. What if I was wrong? What if this was all in vain? The protest, which was supposed to be a symbol of resistance and unity, quickly turned into an emotional battlefield. The tension escalated, and soon there were shouts and arguments between those supporting Layla and those opposing her. The atmosphere became hostile, and Layla realized that what had started as a fight for justice could end in disaster. The pressure mounted, and she felt lost, as if she were navigating through a stormy sea without knowing how to reach the shore. When the protest came to an end, Layla sat on a school bench, exhausted. The feeling of failure consumed her. Mia approached with a look of concern. "I'm sorry, Layla, I shouldn't have doubted you. This was all very intense." Layla felt a wave of frustration. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, Mia. What is expected of me? What can I really change?" Her friend's words echoed in her mind. The pressure was beginning to affect not only her emotional state, but also her physical health. Layla started to experience frequent migraines, and her energy seemed to evaporate with each passing day. Sleepless nights became scarce, and anxiety kept her awake, thinking about the consequences of her struggle. Over time, Layla realized that she needed a new focus. Not just a protest, but a way to bring the community into the conversation. Inspired, she decided to organize a meeting with her father's support, where everyone could share experiences and discuss how to combat prejudice constructively. This idea breathed new life into her. Layla began to feel stronger, as she realized she was not alone on this journey. She also remembered how her peers, despite their doubts, had come together to support her. It was time to transform that support into something positive. And so Layla said goodbye to a path that made her feel so insecure and decided to focus on uniting people. This new direction made her feel that even in a moment of despair, there was a way forward that could lead to change, not just for her, but for everyone around her. The choice to seek unity instead of division became her new mantra, and Layla was determined to move forward, regardless of the challenges still to come. Layla Blackwood was determined to change the narrative surrounding her. After the tumultuous protest, she realized that she needed a new approach. The idea of bringing the community together seemed promising. But as she prepared for this new phase, an unexpected event shook her foundations. It was a Saturday morning when Layla received a message from Mia asking to meet. The tone of the message was urgent, and Layla felt a chill in her stomach. Upon arriving at the cafe where they met, she saw her friend with red eyes and a worried expression. "Layla, you need to know something," Mia said, her voice trembling. "The school is planning a new code of conduct. They want to control even more what we can say and do." The revelation hit Layla like a blow. It was as if the fight she had started was already being threatened before it even took off. Her heart raced at the thought of the implications. "This is an attempt to silence us," she murmured, feeling the anger grow inside her. "How can they do this now?" Mia nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "We need to do something. We can't let this happen." But at the same time, doubt still lingered between them. Layla felt immense pressure, not only to act but to act correctly. The fear of failing once again consumed her. In the days that followed, Layla began to feel the weight of responsibility once more. The pressure of being the voice of change became almost unbearable. As they planned a new protest against the code of conduct, she recalled Mia's words about the risks of a movement that could bring more problems than solutions. Anxiety made her reconsider her approach. Was this really the right path? The night before the new protest, Layla was in her room battling insomnia. Her mind was filled with thoughts. She sat on the edge of her bed, looking in the mirror, and reflected on her choices. "I'm so focused on fighting the system that I might not be listening to the people around me," she thought. This idea made her rethink everything she believed about struggle and resistance. She remembered the shared experiences from the meetings she had organized. The stories her peers told about prejudice and exclusion were powerful. It was a collective struggle, not a solitary battle. Layla realized that real change would come not just from protests, but from dialogues. It was time to seek a deeper connection with others. On the day of the protest, Layla decided that she would not just shout slogans. She wanted to listen, understand, and connect. When she arrived at school, she found a group of students already gathered, many of them with anxious expressions. The atmosphere was tense. Layla stepped up to the makeshift stage, but instead of starting with an impassioned speech, she took a deep breath and said, "Before we talk about what we don't want, why don't we talk about what we do want? What unites us? How can we build a safe space for everyone?" Silence filled the room. People began to whisper, and Layla realized that her words had made an impact. She saw faces that had been closed beginning to open. A student raised his hand, sharing his own experiences of exclusion. Others followed, and soon the atmosphere transformed into a space of sharing and connection. The event took an unexpected turn. Instead of a protest, it became a conversation. Layla felt a wave of emotion, not only from the change in tone, but from the strength that was forming among them. She realized that unity was more powerful than any protest cry. It was a moment of personal and collective overcoming, where every voice mattered. As the stories unfolded, Layla began to understand that her role was not just to lead, but to facilitate, and this made her feel stronger than ever. The pressure that once paralyzed her now transformed into a mission. She was not alone. There was a community willing to fight alongside her. Over time, Layla realized that true change was not about winning battles, but about building bridges. The revelation that dialogue could be the key to transformation was liberating. She smiled, feeling a new sense of purpose. Through connection, she could truly make a difference. And so Layla Blackwood not only stood up, but also lifted others around her, creating a movement of hope and unity where there had once been uncertainty and fear. Layla Blackwood felt that a new path had opened before her. What began as a protest transformed into a space for dialogue, and this change made her reflect on her own journey. After the event, a sense of relief and hope enveloped her, but it was soon replaced by a new reality. The consequences of that day began to be felt in her life and in the life of the school community. In the days that followed, Layla noticed that many students felt inspired by the new approach. Messages of support flooded her social media, and she began receiving invitations to participate in meetings with different groups. However, this new position of prominence also brought challenges. Some students, especially those opposed to any form of change, began to criticize Layla. The pressure increased, and at times she felt overwhelmed. On a particularly difficult day, Layla decided she needed a break. She sat in the park near the school, watching the leaves sway in the wind. It was a space that always calmed her, but now, even there, her mind couldn't rest. Doubt assailed her. Was she doing the right thing? What if the proposal for dialogue wasn't enough to change the situation at the school? The idea of failing again haunted her. While she was immersed in her thoughts, Mia approached. Her friend noticed the worried expression on Layla's face and sat down beside her. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked gently. Layla hesitated, but the need to vent was greater. She shared about the criticism she was receiving and the pressure she felt to maintain the new approach. Mia listened attentively, and after a moment of silence, shared her own insecurities. "I'm scared too, Layla, but what you did was amazing. People are starting to open up, and that's crucial." Mia's words brought a bit of comfort. Layla realized she wasn't alone in the struggle. Together they decided they needed a plan to deal with the adverse reactions. In the following days, Layla and Mia organized a meeting with students who had felt inspired by the idea of dialogue. They wanted to strengthen the community and create a safe space for everyone to express their opinions. However, the group also attracted some opponents who were unwilling to accept change. This became a new obstacle. During one of the meetings, a very critical student raised his voice. "Do you think this is going to change anything? Just empty talk won't get this code of conduct off the paper." The atmosphere became tense, and Layla felt her heart race. What should have been a welcoming space was turning into a battleground. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the need for dialogue. "I understand that you're frustrated," Layla began, trying to stay calm, "but it's important for everyone to have space to speak. We need to listen to each other to find solutions." To her surprise, the students' frustration turned into a heated but respectful debate. The conversation, though difficult, was an important step for the students to feel heard. However, even with the progress, Layla couldn't ignore the emotional pressure she felt. Each day she questioned whether she was truly making a difference. Sleepless nights returned, and she began to feel a weight on her shoulders. She knew she needed to take care of herself to continue fighting for change. In a moment of introspection, she decided it was time to seek support. Layla approached the school counselor and requested a guidance session. Talking to someone who could offer an outside perspective was a relief. The counselor helped her understand that change doesn't happen overnight, and that her role as a facilitator was valuable, even if she didn't have all the answers. Over time, Layla began to implement small self-reflections into her routine. She wrote in a journal, recording her feelings and lessons learned. This became a safe space to express her insecurities and achievements. She also started reconnecting with hobbies she had set aside due to pressure. Painting, an old passion, brought a new sense of peace. As she continued to work with the community, Layla realized that the interactions that had once seemed challenging were becoming opportunities for growth. The resistance she faced strengthened her, and she began to see the critics as part of the process, not as enemies. With each conversation, with each story shared, Layla felt more connected to her mission. The journey wasn't easy, but Layla learned that true change requires time, patience, and a united community. Each step she took brought her closer to a future where everyone's voice would have space. And so, Layla Blackwood not only faced the challenges that arose after her turning point, but also transformed into a stronger and more compassionate leader, inspiring others to do the same. Layla Blackwood was at a pivotal moment in her life. After the protest that transformed the dynamics of the school, she found herself on a new path, filled with challenges and opportunities. What began as a yearning for change turned into a personal mission. However, this mission did not come without its difficulties. In the days that followed the event, Layla noticed that her voice was echoing among the students. Many felt inspired by the new approach and wanted to actively participate in the discussions. However, with visibility came criticism. Those who feared change began to attack her, and the pressure on her shoulders increased. Insecurity set in, making her question whether she was really doing the right thing. One morning, after a sleepless night, Layla decided she needed some time for herself. The park near the school, which had always been a refuge, felt distant now. She sat on a bench, watching the leaves dance in the wind. But even there, her mind couldn't rest. Doubt consumed her. What if all of this was just an illusory dream? What if her efforts weren't enough? At that moment, Mia, her loyal friend, approached. With a keen eye, she noticed that Layla was struggling internally. "What's bothering you, Layla?" she asked gently. Layla hesitated, but the need to vent was stronger. She shared her concerns about the criticism and pressure she was facing. Mia listened attentively, and in a moment of silence, shared her own insecurities. "I'm scared too, but what you did was amazing. People are starting to open up, and that's crucial." The words of her friend brought some comfort to Layla, who realized she was not alone. Determined to move forward, they outlined a plan to strengthen the community and create a safe environment for everyone. As days went by, Layla and Mia organized a meeting for those who felt inspired by the idea of dialogue. However, the group also attracted opponents who were unwilling to accept change. During one of those meetings, a critical student raised his voice, questioning the effectiveness of what they were doing. The atmosphere quickly became tense, and Layla felt her heart race. Taking a deep breath, she tried to stay calm. "I understand your frustration," she began, "but it's crucial that everyone has the chance to express themselves. We need to listen to each other." To her surprise, the conversation turned into a heated but respectful debate. With each word exchanged, Layla felt she was making progress, even though the path was difficult. However, the emotional weight did not disappear. Layla began to feel like she was sinking under the pressure. It was then that she decided to seek support. Talking to the school counselor was a relief. The counselor helped her realize that change takes time and that her role as a facilitator was valuable, even if she didn't have all the answers. This conversation was a turning point. Layla began to implement small self-reflections into her routine. Writing in a journal became a way to organize her thoughts and feelings. She reconnected with painting, an old passion that helped her find peace amid the chaos. These new practices brought a new sense of balance to her life. As she continued to work with the community, Layla began to see her critics in a new light. What once seemed like a barrier was now becoming an opportunity for learning. Instead of letting the opposing voices shake her, she saw them as part of the growth process. Each conversation became an opportunity for connection and learning, and the resistance she faced strengthened her. Over time, Layla realized that true change was not just about the school, but about the transformation within herself. She began to trust her abilities more and accept that asking for help was not a sign of weakness, but rather a demonstration of courage. This new perspective made her realize that success was not something superficial or material, but rather the ability to make an impact and inspire others. The lessons she learned were profound. Each challenge became an opportunity for growth, and the internal conflicts that once paralyzed her began to dissipate. Layla felt stronger and more connected to others. Her friendship with Mia evolved, and together they became a driving force in the pursuit of change. Over time, Layla Blackwood not only faced the challenges that arose in her path, but also transformed into a stronger and more compassionate leader. Her journey taught her that, even in the face of adversity, it is possible to find strength within oneself and that a true leader is not the one who has all the answers, but rather the one who is capable of listening, learning, and inspiring. Thus, Layla became not only a voice in her school, but a source of hope for many. Layla Blackwood was about to face the biggest challenge of her journey. After months of hard work, the school community had become divided. The meetings that once promoted dialogue and exchanges of ideas had now turned into battlefields. The tension was palpable, and the atmosphere was charged with distrust. The opponents had become more aggressive, and Layla felt that everything she had built was about to crumble. On the morning of the big debate, Layla woke up with a knot in her stomach. The event would be a milestone, an opportunity for everyone to express their opinions and hopefully find common ground. However, insecurity accompanied her like a persistent shadow. She remembered the counselor's words, "True change takes time." But what if time ran out? What if, instead of changing the school for the better, she caused even more divisions? With her mind full of doubts, Layla prepared for the meeting. Upon arriving in the room, she noticed that the environment was divided. On one side were the supporters of change, who believed in the importance of dialogue. On the other were the critics, who saw no value in Layla's proposals. The atmosphere was tense. She could feel the critical gaze of some students like cutting blades. When it was her turn to speak, Layla took a deep breath. The voices around her seemed to fade, and the pressure on her shoulders intensified. "I thank you all for being here," she began, trying to maintain her composure. "We are here because we believe that everyone has a voice, and that dialogue is essential for our community." She looked into the faces around her, searching for connection, but found resistance. One of the critical students, Lucas, raised his hand and interjected, "But what do you really know about our reality? You talk about change, but what about the consequences?" His words echoed in the room, and a murmur of support arose among the critics. Layla's heart raced. It felt like she was being challenged to prove her worth, and the pressure was overwhelming. I understand your frustration, Lucas," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "But that's exactly why we are here, to listen to each other." The tension rose, and voices began to overlap. Layla closed her eyes for a moment, trying to gather courage. "I know I don't have all the answers, but we need to try. If we don't talk, we'll never know what we can change." At that moment, Mia stood up beside Layla. "Layla is a leader, and we all need to support her. Each of us has a story, and we need to hear them all." Mia's words were like a balm. She was there, next to Layla, ready to face the storm. Their friendship had become an anchor amid the chaos. Lucas, now visibly shaken, hesitated. "But what if we don't want to change?" he asked, his voice lower. The room fell silent, everyone waiting for the response. Layla felt that this was the decisive moment. It's true, change isn't easy, and not everyone will be ready for it. But if we don't try, we'll be doomed to repeat the same mistakes. Each of us has the power to transform the reality around us. At that instant, Layla found her inner strength. The insecurity that had accompanied her dissipated, giving way to renewed determination. She saw the potential in each person in the room, even those who opposed her. "Let's talk openly. Let's hear everyone's concerns. I don't want this to be just about me or about you. I want it to be about us as a community." The atmosphere began to change. The voices that were once resistant were now turning into questions, and the tension was shifting into dialogue. The debate became an exchange of ideas, and the room began to pulse with the energy of possibility. Layla realized that by opening space for others, she was also allowing herself to be heard. By the end of the meeting, the tensions were still there, but there was a new willingness in the air. Students began to gather in small groups, discussing the issues Layla had raised. She looked at Mia, who smiled, and a wave of relief washed over her. They had succeeded. It wasn't a complete victory, but a significant step in the right direction. Layla realized that true success wasn't about winning debates, but about creating a space where everyone felt valued. She had learned that strength wasn't the absence of fear, but the courage to face it. And so that day, Layla Blackwood not only became a voice in her school, but a symbol of hope and change, demonstrating that true transformation begins within each person. After the big debate, Layla Blackwood felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The event hadn't been perfect, but the change in the school environment was palpable. Conversations that had formerly been marked by shouting and misunderstandings were now turning into respectful dialogues. Even though the division still existed, something had begun to transform. In the days that followed, Layla noticed that the students were more open. In the hallways, groups were forming, not just those who supported her, but also those who had previously been skeptical. Lucas, for example, sought Layla out again. He seemed calmer and more willing to listen. "I'm sorry if I was too harsh in the debate," he said in a tone that surprised Layla. "There was something in what you said that really made me think. I just want the school to be a place where everyone feels safe." Layla smiled, feeling that her words had made an impact. "And you're right, Lucas, we need to work together for that. Each of us has a role to play." Their conversation began to open doors, and Layla felt grateful for the opportunity to reconnect with someone who, until recently, had been considered an adversary. The following week, the school organized a series of workshops to discuss the concerns raised during the debate. Layla was excited but also apprehensive. She knew that not everyone would be willing to participate, but curiosity was in the air. During one of the workshops, she saw Mia talking with a group of students who had previously been completely closed to the idea of change. The image of Mia, so engaged and enthusiastic, made Layla feel warmth in her heart. That night, Layla sat down with her mother for a simple dinner. As they ate, she shared about the workshops and the interactions she had. "Mom, I really feel like something is changing," Layla said, her eyes shining with emotion. "People are starting to listen to each other. It's not perfect, but it's a start." Layla's mother smiled, but her eyes showed some concern. "That's wonderful, dear, but remember that change can be slow and challenging. Some people may still have difficulty accepting this new environment." Layla nodded, knowing her mother was right. Change would take time and patience. In the days that followed, Layla began to notice small changes in herself. The insecurity that had accompanied her before seemed to be diminishing. She started to understand that leadership didn't mean having all the answers, but rather the ability to listen and bring people together. The conversations that had once been heavy were now becoming lighter, and empathy was spreading through the school like a gentle fire. During one of the breaks, Layla met with Mia and Lucas. They were talking about their recent experiences when Lucas suggested a new idea for a group project. "What if we had a week of activities where everyone could share their stories? That way we could understand each other better," he proposed. Layla was thrilled with the idea and soon began planning how they could make it a reality. Layla's excitement was contagious, and soon others joined them, offering suggestions and ideas. The project took shape, and the school began to unite around a common goal: to create a space where everyone could feel heard and respected. Layla remembered how every step they took together was important, and her heart filled with hope. Thus, Layla Blackwood's journey not only impacted her life, but also the lives of many others. She learned that true transformation begins when people come together in pursuit of a common purpose. The path to change is not easy, but with courage, empathy, and a little patience, it is possible to build a better future. As she watched the students come together around the project, Layla realized that the division that once seemed insurmountable was now dissipating. She smiled, knowing that even though there was much work ahead, the spirit of cooperation and understanding had finally begun to blossom in her school. Layla Blackwood observed the transformation around her with a mix of gratitude and surprise. The journey that had begun with doubts and insecurities had now become a source of strength and learning. Conversations that were once fraught with tension were now turning into opportunities for connection. She had seen how her courage to stand up and listen to others had planted seeds of change in the school, and those seeds were beginning to flourish. That week, the long-awaited Story Week arrived. Students from different groups came together to share their experiences and stories. Layla, in particular, was moved to see Lucas and Mia working together. The friendship that once seemed unlikely was now a powerful example of how empathy could unite people. During the presentations, tears were shed, laughter was shared, and most importantly, barriers were broken. Layla realized that by opening her heart and exposing herself, she had allowed others to do the same. She understood that true success was not just about gaining acceptance, but about creating a space where everyone could feel valued. Her journey was not just about winning a debate, but about building a bridge of understanding among the students. Reflecting on her journey brought forth a new wisdom. Layla understood that the difficulties faced along the way had shaped not only her character, but also her purpose. She had become a leader not because she had all the answers, but because she had learned to listen and care about others' stories. This shift in perspective had made her stronger and more resilient. However, the true test of her transformation came when a group of students who had previously opposed any idea of change decided to retaliate. They planned to destabilize Story Week by spreading rumors and creating divisions. Layla felt distressed upon realizing that some people were still not ready to accept change. But instead of letting it get her down, she gathered her friends and decided to act wisely. Layla and her allies came together to turn the situation around. They organized an open meeting where everyone could express their concerns. Instead of seeking revenge in a hostile way, Layla chose empathy. During the meeting, the students who had been hostile were given the opportunity to express themselves. Surprisingly, many of them shared insecurities and fears they had regarding change. By hearing their stories, Layla realized that, like her, they were also seeking a safe space. The feeling of revenge that Layla had felt at the beginning transformed into understanding. She not only overcame the challenge, but also became a mediator between the groups. What started as an attack on her initiative ended up further strengthening the unity of the school. The open dialogue allowed everyone to feel heard and respected. By the end of the week, Layla sat on a bench in the courtyard, watching her classmates laugh and have fun together. She smiled as she realized that the true victory was not just the acceptance of her idea, but the resilience and ability to build a space where everyone felt part of something bigger. Layla's journey had not only transformed her, but had also left an indelible mark on the school. Thus, Layla Blackwood learned that the most important battles are not won with revenge, but with empathy and unity. She invited everyone to reflect on their own stories and to always seek dialogue, even in the most challenging situations. If you have also gone through similar experiences or have a story of overcoming to share, don't hesitate. Leave your comment and join us in this conversation. Like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue sharing stories that inspire and transform. Your voice is important, and together we can make a difference.